Alright, you guys, it's everyone's third favorite time of the year. I want you to jump in the comments and let me know the other two best times of the year. Can be fantasy, can be not. I'm interested in seeing those answers. Ezra, man, we're going to kick off with our cash cow video. So a pretty important one here. Heading into round 14, obviously we're going to be looking at guys to make money across this period, and then we can, trade them down to cash outs or upgrade them to guns and get our team values really, really high, so we can really set ourselves up for round 18 and heading in all the way to round 25 for that final round there. So really important times. And we've got a few guys here that potentially will be playing in 17, so you can use them as a cash cow and potential as a player as well in round 17. There's going to be a bunch that we're just going to be using as cash cows, and then there's going to be a few that I think are very much ones to avoid, but you guys are asking the question on them, so we will answer it. Ezra, man, we start off with obviously a nice negative break even after a 54 and a 48. I'm personally just going to go out on a limb and expect him to play not as well in this game. So the missed tackles was a little bit of an issue last week. He was making a bunch, but I'm expecting a game under 35 points this week. So you can put that out there. We'll see how we go with that one. Obviously, kick meters aren't going to be there with Reynolds. Obviously, they weren't really anyway in the first game, but the meters gain is going to be his biggest one. If he can continue to do that, then great. But I also feel like up against the Canberra Raiders, it's going to be a fairly tough game. Raiders are playing pretty well. I can see them coming out and doing a great job this week and nullifying the Broncos a little bit. I think that the Raiders are in a little bit, a decent amount enough form that they can nullify these guys, make him miss a bunch of tackles, have the odd error or two, and a 35 and under. Anyway, besides the point, we're at 325k. What we're looking at for him, obviously, he's going to be playing in round 17, which is big tick, 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 right? Is he going to keep his spot? He's got Tyson Gamble, who's out. We also have, a couple other potential guys that they could fit into that spot. But Ezra there definitely has an opportunity to do well. He's owned by no one, basically in the top 5,000. All this ownership percentage is guys that would have started with him and potentially not playing him anymore. And then those few guys that are taking a bit of a risk. And it obviously was worked out so far. You got the 2 games out of him, and this is going to be the third. So he's definitely a 50-50 option for me. If you want to take a bit of a risk and you think that he can continue to score well, and he think he's going to keep his spot in the team heading into round 17, then I think he's probably a trade in. If you're a little bit risk adverse, I'd probably stay away. He's probably got 100k to make and could potentially lose his spot at any time. So that's the risk with Ezra. Let me know your take on him. Obviously, the run meters is great, the tackles is awesome, but I'm expecting some misses for a young fella, smaller guy. I expect him to have a few negatives in this game, and that's just I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he can't score 350s in a row. Don't feel like it's too crazy to think. We've seen it with a few guys now that, obviously he's in a position where he's going to get some more tackles. He can run the ball a bit better. But, we saw with Carraz come out and he was an absolute superstar the first 2 games. And then teams, game planned on him a little bit, worked him out a little bit more. And he wasn't as effective the last 2. So I'm expecting something under 35 for Ezra. And that will be all. 50-50 chance of getting in anyone's squad, I think, this week. All right, big Raymond's the big one here. So he's got 20 out of the top 100 own Raymond. So hasn't really gained much in cash. Obviously, the last, since he's played the first 3 games, he was 400 at the start. He's down to 360 odd. Still has a solid break even there. My thoughts this week are that he's going to score a 40 plus. So I'm expecting over 60 minutes for Raymond this week. Now they got the 52 last week. They come up against Paris. It's going to be a fairly tough game for him, and I think they'll need him to step up. In his 4th game back, obviously, increasing his minutes each and every game. We've seen what he's done in 80-minute efforts, and my theory is if you're not picking him up, you're really just hoping he doesn't score a try, because when he does, he goes really, really big in those 80-minute performances. He has a bunch of games in that second row with mid-40s performances, even low 50s without a try. I'm not expecting any of those scores yet, but somewhere over 40 this week, I think will be pretty fair for someone like RFM. At 364k, you're getting him 50 above what Ezra Mam is. The only issue with Raymond is he won't be playing in 17, so using him as just a cash cow that could score for you fairly well. And at this point of the season, be a guy that you play on the bench in your 14 to 17 there. So completely up to you whether you want to play this one. If you went a little bit lighter in round 13 and you have a bunch of guys ready to go for round 17, or you're going to trade heavy to bring in guys for that game, round 17, for example, then I think Raymond could be okay. If you're running low on trades, then he could be someone that you trade in as like he's going to be a 16th, 17th, 18th man for me, come the back end of the year, because he is someone that can score really well. We've seen in those 80-minute performances, for example, with RFM. That's my thoughts on him. Make your decision based on that. All right. Cody Ramsey's the interesting one. So he's going to be playing round 17, which is a great start. He's owned by a very small percentage of people, so he can be a pod. I think he's going to be owned by a little bit more after this week, especially if I talk about it. Round 11 and 12 is when he came back. So round 1, 2, 3 he's on the wing. Scored okay in that first game with 25, and then he had a 10-3. Ugh, yuck. That's a risk as he gets pushed back to the wing, right? But since those two games back, he's come straight into the fullback position. Got a 55 with a try, a couple of line breaks, and a try assist. Okay, sweet. That's what you expect from a score when a guy gets involved like that. Game 2, he has 39 with 1 try assist. Okay, this is not bad. 5 tackle breaks and 146 meters. So if we can expect at a minimum, he's going to get about the 130, 140 run meters. Cool. 3 to 5 tackle breaks. Seems pretty fair. There's close to another 8 to 10 points. That's in the 20s now. And then from there, the odd couple of tackles. He hasn't been missing many, really. He's had one real bad game in the last couple of years with 7 missed tackles. And other than that, he's pretty solid on that front. He's getting a lot bigger, obviously, in the few years that he's been playing. So, again, Ramsey's definitely a risk. The 315k, the lower break even after 2 great games. He's going to make some cash over the next bunch of weeks. He's going to play in round 17. So, for me, he's probably a 100k maker, in terms of gains, and could score okay for you in that tough wing fullback position. So if you want to go for Ramsey, he's not a home run pick by any stretch of the imagination. There's every chance that he ends up scoring like Taff does, or did. For most people have moved him on by now. So yeah, that's probably the main worry, is that he gains like 50k, he scores mid-20s, does okay for you, and then you have to move him on. But at getting around 17 scores is going to be ideal in some capacity, and then you might have to move him on from there. Best case scenario, he averages 35, gains you 150k, and then you can trade him on from then. So that's the theory with Cody Ramsey. Now this one here's a very interesting one with Silva Haveli there with 446k. All right, we got a low break even just for the back, from his last bunch of games. So since round 8 is when everything changed. So the first 4 rounds he was playing around that 15 to 25 minutes, right? It's like normal low scores. He has a PPM of 0.8 over his career, which he spent a little bit of time at hooker. He spent some time as a middle forward, plenty of different things for the Raiders, and then now he's moved to the Bunnings this year. So they didn't use him too much in that period, and then come from round 8 onwards, we obviously saw Jacob Host go down, which left a little bit more space for minutes on the bench, and Haveli's been the one to really garner those minutes. So since that time, his PPM's been incredible, right? He's had a few games over that, right on that 1 point per minute, and then one there that's been a fair bit lower in that 29 that he scored in the 41 minutes 2 games ago. But last week, obviously killed it. Got the 6 tackle breaks, plenty of run meters, and the try. What we want to be expecting and hoping for is somewhere around what he got in those first 2 games. So the first 3, we'll put it together. So averaging 40 across those first 3 games. If we can get that from Silva, then we get 100, 150k in price rises there to get him closer to that 600-ish mark with a 40, 41, 42 average would be the goal. What you also get out of Haveli is the hooking position cover. So a lot of people going for, we've got Cook, we've got Harry Grant, we've got bringing in Reed this week, for example, maybe Robson, and Silva could be that guy that'll help us out on the bench instead of someone like Tommy Starling. And if you wanted a straight swap for Starling, I've seen a few people ask that question, then going to Silva could be a solid idea. It looks like he'll have that for the majority of the year. This role in the team is that strong middle forward that's very nuggety and can get in, do the hard yards in the tackling, and then obviously run that 100+ meters. So definitely an interesting option here. Obviously a fair bit more expensive than guys like RFM, but it's more around that hooker coverage and that ability to play as an interchange player on your bench and get around that 40 mark would be Haveli's role, and he's going to play round 17. So up to you whether you want to go for him. All right, one I'm not too high on is Hamiso, but I wanted to speak about him because a few people have asked, but we're looking at him playing on the wing, right? Playing in the centers potentially, or the wing, right? Depending on if Val Holmes backs up or however we're going to play this. We look at his score in round 12 on the wing. He had a try saver and still had 17 points. He had a few games off the interchange. They already played a little bit of wing, etc., where he didn't do as well. For example, we've seen his scores at center last year was solid, but him playing on the wing, it's between 25 and 30 at a max. So even in a good team with the Cowboys, we've seen what he can do in the centers, which is great. In the fullback position, great. But on the wing, it's just a bit of a risk for me. if we're being honest, and he doesn't play round 17 either. So yeah, I just think that you don't trade him in. He's obviously owned by a couple of guys in the top 100, but I just don't see it as being a great option, even with the dual position. Not really for me. All right, on one end, we've got to speak about as well. A few people were asking about him before the bye, and now that he's completed he's been playing every game from here on in, and has been doing well, obviously, the last few weeks. So we had a couple of 26s, which is 64 and a 39. But, a lot of people were picking him up off one good week, right? Last week was solid as well with 39, obviously the try assist, limited missed tackles the last 2 weeks. I just don't see that continuing where he gets 1-2 missed tackles a week and is tackling over 10 a week. So, yeah, I don't really see it happening. The run meters have been up, which is great, and that's the only chance that he's got to get these nice attacking stats. But I just don't see him being a solid option at 370k. He's just too expensive for me. So up to you if you want to. He's going to be playing round 17, but he's a no for me. All right, Michael Molo. 295 is obviously solid. We got a mid guy that could make a bit of cash, and he will definitely make a little bit, but how much is the question? We get a 53 out of him in 47 minutes in round 11, and then a bunch of people picked him up. Obviously not too many, but enough. 3% own him now, but scoring a 23. Obviously a lovely PPM of 1.1 there, but 19 minutes is the main issue. Right, so if we could guaranteed get 30, 35, 40 minutes, then he's an instant pickup for someone who's going to play in round 17, most likely. Obviously, there's a risk that he could be dropped as well. But generally, my main issue is the fact that he's only going to be, there's a good chance that he gets 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And we saw what happened with guys like Leo Thompson and some other middle forwards, including Spencer Lanu and stuff like that they end up with 20, 25, 30 minutes, and they just sit and rot on your bench, and you can't really score, you can't really play them, because the odd week you'll get a 40, and then the next week he gets 15. It just really kills you. So at this point in the season, you really want a cash cow that's going to be pretty secure in their position. And Molo, we're not exactly sure if he's secure. They'd obviously have majority of their forwards back. Maguire's there. You got DeBellin. You got all their middles as well to go along with. Yeah, just a plethora of forwards there at the Dragons. Obviously earned his way into the squad, but how many minutes is going to be the issue. So for me, he's probably a no. Sam McIntyre we'll speak about as well. Obviously has been playing, started second row 39 minutes round 12, and then got the 80 minutes last week, and obviously scored really well. Main issue with him is Fafita will come back, and I don't see him playing 80 minutes. And we need him to be an 80-minute scorer for him to do well with that PPM of 0.68. Not too bad at all, but yeah, just someone that's not going to be playing the huge minutes, and I don't think we need to talk about him too much because he's not going to be playing in round 17 either. 3 more players to go. Lukey Garner, a few people have been asking about as well. With Tuolangi going back to the bench, we see Garner come into the starting side in the second row. A 58 with the try, and then a 38 with 6 missed tackles and limited run meters. So this has been the player that he's been for the majority of his career. He'll have the odd game where he gets a couple of tries or a try and gets 50 plus, 70, a few games there. He'll have the odd ones where he's really, really consistent in his base stats, 100 meters, 30 odd tackles, and gets you a 40 odd. And then he has a few games where he gets 24, the 26, the 38. A bunch of games there where he doesn't get the full 80 minutes, and he's a bit of a pain when he gets 21, for example. There's a few things there to think about with him. The mid-30s, and if you're getting them at 490k, that really kills you. We need him to be averaging 40 plus, and I just don't think he's going to get that. Obviously, the edge and the center duel is great, but we have so many of those guys with Aitken and Tungo, and then you've got Burton as a gun center. You've got Joey Manu now. There's a lot of different players that could do really well for your squad, and I think you can stay away a little bit from those Tigers players, and Garner is one of those guys for sure. All right, Jake Auvailo, a very, very, very interesting player this week. We get him at around a negative break even there, and he gets to play, in the fullback position, which is interesting. He got the nice score 45 with the double try in round 12, and then they moved him. They got named in the centers, but actually played fullback last week and picked up 36 against the Panthers when they got beat, for example. You look at the next few weeks, you got Para, the Tigers, the Sharks, and the Rabbitohs, for example, over the next 4. But the main issue with Jakey Boy is he doesn't play in round 17. He's very much new to the position of fullback, and I think that he could do really well, right? But he's playing for the Dogs, and playing for the Dogs there, obviously being a weaker team, unfortunately, is a little bit of an issue for someone at this cheap price point, which is obviously nice, but I would almost pick Ramsey over him, just a straight, like for like, just because Ramsey is going to play in round 17. So Auvailo with the half and the centre duel is great, but we do have a lot of those types of players, a lot of halves, a lot of centres, You've got Burton, who's in that position, for example, has that duel, and we probably more likely need more fullbacks than we do centres. So that's the thoughts on Auvailo. He definitely has a chance to average in the mid-30s, around that 40 mark, because he has that talent, but he is in the Dogs, and you know, how many tries are they going to score against Para? Are they going to get pumped? Yeah, we're not exactly sure how that's going to go. So that's my thoughts around Auvailo. We move to the last one. We got Paulie Turner, who comes in and gets his opportunity. So when he's played a couple of games, in the halves, for example, he's got a 44 and a 49. So he definitely has that pedigree to come out and do it right. His tackling's really good. You can see 2 misses for his 46 tackles in his 3 games that he's played. Awesome. You can't complain with that. At 270k, the thing is now, how many games is he going to get, right? And with them not playing in round 17, also an issue. So I can understand why people would go for him at 270k, but is his position safe? Is it not? Who knows at this point? And I think you could probably wait a week to see how he plays. If he plays good, they'll probably keep him in the side. If he doesn't, then he could be straight swapped, and you have that 270, 290k, whatever gains you make in this week, in your side there in the emergencies, just rotting for you and not getting your player in round 17. So that's the cash cows and potential mid-rangers video for the week. I hope you guys really enjoyed that one. I know you normally do. And again, jump in those comments and let me know what the 2 best times of the year are. Subscribe, like this video. I appreciate it so much for you guys being here. Enjoy Origin tonight. I can't wait to see it. Go the Blues, and I'll catch you in the next one, guys. See you later.